And that was the strangest thing, making Shepherd. I'd had that film in my head for so long. To walk onto that set and then see the actors in the costumes that I'd imagined them in, and to play it the way, I'd imagined it, that
Mm.
was a very, very strange thing to see. And then you panic and see it on the big screen, and you see sort of 400 people sitting down in the theatre, the film festival, and it starts playing, and you go, "Oh God, this has all come out of my head. I better," I turn away and run because I don't want to watch everybody watching my film. It's weird.
A garden of pure ideology.
Yeah, just your typical Super Bowl car ad.
Or a hilarious beer ad.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
I think you're the best ever.
I think we're going to be here a while.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Filmmakers and Advertising. My name is Justin Rossbacher, and today I am joined with film director Russell Owen. I had a delightful conversation with him. He's a really interesting career path, and he is just in the midst of an amazing momentum of multiple features in the works right now and projects. So excited to talk to him. But ultimately, he's been working in commercials and features for at least 2 decades. His latest feature, Shepherd, an atmospheric psychological horror, premiered to critical acclaim as New York Times Critic Pick and featured as BBC's Mark Kermode's Film of the Week. On the commercial side, he's worked on hundreds of campaigns for such brands as American Express and Armani. So yes, he is definitely a filmmaker in advertising, and he is an advertiser in filmmaking. He founded Kindred Pictures, a London-based production company working across both commercials and features around the world. He also guest lectures with British Film Institute education program. He's a BAFTA member and a Directors UK member. So really excited to get into it. I'll get out of the way. Let's get into our conversation with Russell. So what can you talk about as far as the types of projects that you're doing now, or is that under wraps at the moment?
Yeah, I mean they're under wraps, pure just as these deals are closing. But I've got a brilliant cast for my new film, which is a survival thriller. And since I got my manager in the US and my new agent in January, things have moved on a little bit quicker. Because yeah, when I was a lone agent, I was certainly vulnerable to being kicked from pillar to post. So that had helped. But yeah, now the ball is rolling on it. I think since my last film, we released right in the midst of COVID, and that was a quite a roller coaster. And then we had the strikes not long after that. So it's been a tough few years, I think, for the film industry. So yeah, this year seems to have sort of cleared a lot of that.
Yeah. Now this would be your third feature, right?
Yeah, I did my first feature, my first proper feature. I did an experimental feature back in 2011, released 2012, to a few small film festivals, and that really sort of launched me into a commercials career. I'd done a few short films before that. Um, and then I had a good run of in commercials as a creative director and director up until 2017, right when I left to do my own thing. And then I got a call. There was a zombie film that needed a director. They'd lost a couple of their directors, one after the other, and I said, "Oh, do you know what? Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll do it." And that was a huge lesson in doing things last minute. When I picked the script up, I mean, there wasn't really a script to talk about. It was a mess. They wanted to shoot in 5 weeks. They had no cast, no crew, no locations. It was a complete mess. But I pulled it off purely because I've been doing years of last minute commercial work, and trying to put crews and things together. So I pulled a lot of my commercial team in. And we made it look as beautiful as we could. It is a great looking film, but yeah, that script was like lead to sort of get through. It was really tough. So the deal I did for my next film with the producers was I will forego my fee on this if you'll replace the next script you have on your slate, which was another sort of really rough script, with one that I've written, and I direct it. And they agreed. And although it was a rocky production, again, it was a much better experience. So it was a much easier shoot, and there was a story there everybody could follow, and I got a much better cast in terms of like level of cast. I had a great cast on the zombie film, but it was a long audition process. With this, we just had to go out and offer to sort of established stars, and it was a very quick, easy shoot. But again, the production was tough, and then there was COVID, and but yeah, it's been. So this one I'm working on now will be my third, and I've also started working on my fourth and fifth with different producers. So it's yeah, it's been
Oh
a busy
wow.
can.
That is phenomenal. That is most of our listeners probably dream right now that you're in the middle of, as far as the opportunities in front of you. You had mentioned you'd done an experimental feature
Mm.
first,
Yeah.
and then you did the
Years.
zombie, and then you did Shepherd.
That's right. So the experimental feature I started at the end of 2010.
Okay.
And a couple of years before that, I had sold my car. I bought some Kodak Super 35mm film reels, and
Okay.
we hired a studio, and we built a little set with literally, I think it was about £5,000 I got for my car. And I did all the deals I could, and we made a little 10-minute 35mm short film in a studio, with sets, and Panavision sponsored it, and we got light, and it was great. After that, I thought, okay, I really want to push onto features, and digital was just about getting good then, and I was able to get hold of a red camera, and there was some other
Yeah.
bits and bobs, 5 and 7Ds, and we were able to. I made the costumes, I did the catering, I drove everywhere, I did all the permissions, and I think I made the whole feature for about £8,000.
Wow. It's
And
amazing.
it was a sort of surreal drama. Again, it was a tricky one to do, but I did it in. It was essentially five short films, which are all interlinked, and the fifth film being when it brings
Okay.
all the characters from films. So essentially shot in five sections, which is a great way to shoot something, and that was a really enjoyable process. But I edited it myself. I did a lot of the work, and so it was essentially my PhD in how to and how not to do things. But that
What kind
also
of,
brought me.
and you're just kind of,
So
you're just kind of like piecing this together with like friends, or you had like, what size crew did you have, or
yeah,
just
well,
shoot on the
yeah, no, I mean a
weekends,
lot.
or what'd you do?
Yeah, essentially that. I mean, it was each film, sort of five films, they were about 3 to 4 days each.
Hmm.
And it was I could afford to do one a month. Um, putting all the bits and the costs together. Um, and then I had, yeah, I think it came to about, I think it was about 105-minute long cut at the end, and I cut some scenes out, so we did really well. But yeah, it was friends, it was people I'd been meeting. I've been going to Cannes by that point for about 3 4 years. And I'd
Hmm.
met some great people who just wanted to collaborate. I'd met some good actors, sound and camera people, and so I was able to start putting together a great crew. Some of which I'm still working with today, and they've gone on to sort of great heights and doing brilliant things. So I'm really
Yeah.
lucky to keep working with them.
Yeah. Amazing. So I'm sorry, you met them at Cannes because of some shorts that you had, or you just were attending, or
Yeah,
what was?
I managed to showcase my short at Cannes, not in competition, but I managed to get a couple of screenings, and it just through networking. I mean, it's a great place to just meet people from all sorts of backgrounds. A lot of composers out there for some reason. I mean, there's a lot of them, but you know, you meet you meet people from all sorts of departments, and and yeah, you get friendly and you talk about the things you want to do, and then you try and put things together, and you know, that was a very early days film for me, and as the technology had changed, I was able to sort of, you know, do it myself, and it was yeah, it was a learning curve. But I mean, you know, looking back on it now, you sort of cringe and go, oh God, you know. But back then, it was, you know, it's great, and it did me a lot of favors. It brought my career in commercials after that, so I owe it a
Yeah,
lot.
so tell me, it sounds like you're about to transition to that because I'm also really curious. So you did this experimental feature, and then somehow
Mm.
that opened up a world into commercials, the way you said.
Yeah. So I'd had it. I'd made enough to with the short films and this to sort of put a bit of a show reel together of my work, and um, I got my first job through a friend. They needed a corporate video doing in London.
Nice.
So I got the same team together, and we made this little corporate video, and it was nice, and it was, you know, like, and then my sister also needed a corporate video doing for her company, so we made one for her, and I was able to just sort of piece together enough of a show reel to that. Then I got a job at Rankin, which is a famous photographer over here, certainly back then,
Hmm.
who was opening a film department. Worked with him for a short while, and that then opened me up to move into the agency world properly. And I got a job at a small agency as the creative director. I think there was only five or six of us back then, and they were mostly focused on fashion world, and they had some sort of great contacts in that, and the beauty, like with L'Oreal and American Express, who were sponsoring London Fashion Week. So over a few years, I was able to sort of go in there and expand their portfolio, and we were moving into you know, just doing these short form uh, behind the scenes sponsored content, which was quite new back then. I think it only really, you know, with the advent of YouTube since sort of 2008, nine, you know, doing online adverts started to become a thing. And it was always seems the sort of cheap, you know, little sister to TV commercials. Um,
Hmm.
but we did some great work, and we were able to grow it into a production company that makes TV commercials, and we're able, because of those relationships with those big brands, we're able to start doing, you know, really big campaigns, and I was able to sort of spearhead them creatively. So it was great.
Very nice. And is that related to Kindred, or that was before Kindred, or?
So that was, yeah, it's before Kindred. So Kindred Comms, which I set up with my business partner. I mean, that's over now. And then there was Kindred Pictures, which is just me and a team that work with me. But Kindred Comms, I set up with my old business partner in 2019, and he was my old boss from that agency.
Oh.
And we'd grown that agency together, and you know, we'd had a really good run, and you know, traveled the world shooting all these incredible projects with, you know, huge celebrities and brands. Um, and then I left in 2017 to start up my own thing. Then went
Hmm.
into making the features. By 2019, he'd also left. He'd sold his half of that company and said, "Do you want to start our own thing?" So we started Kindred Comms, and just before we were going into COVID, obviously nobody knew. Um, but we managed to get a couple of contracts together, including you know, BBC Storyworks, and we were doing some work for Unilever. So we got some great projects in to sort of kickstart us off. And then as soon as the films came out, we started getting offers to do some much bigger TV campaigns.
When you say the
And that was
films, the films for those
the
particular
feature film.
clients, the feature films. Okay,
No,
the feature
the
films.
feature film. So that really, so strangely, particularly Shepherd. Um, when I was and I was being, put forward even by the clients to their agencies. So I think, there's VCCP, there was McCann, and there was a sort of a slight aloofness, like, oh, what have you done before? And I had a whole list of, great commercials, and they were, I think they were also pushing their own directors from that commercial world. But then my film was premiering at the London BFI Film Festival that week, and I said, "Well, why don't you come along and see my feature film? It's at the BFI London BFI Film," and that ended the conversation. I got the job because obviously I was the only director there that also does feature films, which is, even now, one of those goals that a lot of commercial directors go for, much more
Totally.
successful commercial than me. So yeah, that helped me out a lot.
So the brand that's working with McCann is like their agency of record, but they've seen
Yeah,
your
so
stuff. They saw your film and they're like, well, that's really cool. Let's hire him to do a commercial. So then they went to
you
McCann
know what they
saying,
did? They didn't even go and come and see the film. They just went, "Oh, you
oh,
made a feature film. Okay, well, that's the end of that conversation." And it just goes to show, it's not people doing their due diligence. It's more people looking at your CV and seeing what you do and go, "Oh, yeah, okay, so you must know what you're doing because you're handling, seven figures, eight figures instead of six." So um,
interesting.
it's almost a numbers thing. I wasn't, I wasn't really run through a process of creativity. Although usually, if they sort of let you down, they say that's the case. But I've learned differently. From so it's not all agencies, but we were also down as a supplier for some of the big agencies as a production company that you can go out to. So that helped.
So that's how you end up getting the job. But how did your name come up in the first place? You said the brand itself or
I
the
had
client itself
yeah,
put you on?
I've had a relationship with some of the clients directly, so that does
Ah,
help. They're able to go to their agency and say we want to work with this guy. But when
okay.
big agencies have big contracts and they've got their own interests financially, they need to sort of put their own people forward. And that particular agency, I remember. The client and them weren't having I won't mention who they were, but they were having a bit of a fallout over all sorts of things, and eventually they ended their contract early. But so I think if they'd have chosen somebody over me, they would have been in trouble as well. So it was a lot of fortuitous events,
Okay.
but certainly the film was the big nudge.
Yeah, well, again, the title of our podcast is Filmmakers in Advertising. So it's
Yeah,
interesting. A lot of people kind of like are maybe doing a short film here and there, do the commercial world, trying to break into the feature world or narrative space. And then it seems like mostly it was the other way around for you. You were doing your shorts, you're doing your experimental feature, and then that broke you into the commercial world. Did that give you
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like a financial basis to feel comfortable like going after more features or like
You know what? Yeah, no, in fact, I think by 2016 I'd been disillusioned, and I was going to Cannes Film Festival still, but this time in a capacity, I was sending crews over to support the brand. So two of our clients were L'Oreal and American Express. We're also doing stuff out there, and Estee Lauder, and I would send out crews to do different things. American Express wanted, a film about the festival. So, I'd put a little team together to do that. And then Deadline.com, which are one of the sponsors, what needed a press junket doing with a load of celebrities. So we set that up for them. L'Oreal were doing a similar thing on the hotels. And I really enjoyed that side of it because there was no pressure. I wasn't running around trying to find money or, and pitch projects or do anything like this. I
mm,
was being paid to be there. I was being paid well. And we had great access. And I was with my friends who, we talk about doing films and all sorts of things, but, we weren't there pressured to do that because we were busy working. And, we also, it gave us the opportunity to hire in and buy some incredible equipment that you would use normally for feature films. We weren't running around with these little things. We were doing some big setups.
love
And I
that.
think all the brands really like that because we were delivering some sort of really high spec stuff. But they were paying for it, and we were putting it on the screen. Whereas nowadays people run around, like, a lot of the stuff they do on their phones. It was just before the influencers were really coming in, and all those budgets were sort of taken away and handed over
Mm-hmm.
to influencers for 3 or 4 posts, and yeah, so. But it was a good time. And then when the opportunity to do that zombie film came in, so it was late 2017, early 2018. That
How'd
kind
they get
of
your
woke me up.
name? How'd they get your name? Where did that
So
conversation come from?
I made a short film before I started at the agencies. It's back in 2012, 2013. And it was one we did over a 3-day period. And there was a guy posting online, you need help, you need a director to sort of envision this script that an artist at the Tate Modern from Asia was over, and she had written this script, and they were looking for a director to do it, and it was free. There's no money, but I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And we made a beautiful film, Occam's Razor, it was called, and it was,
Mm.
really beautiful, and it was a little bit art house, and we got to sort of do some experimenting with cinematography, and yeah, and it was great. We didn't really do anything with the film, and we stayed in touch, but didn't really hear from him for a few years, and then when I was setting up my own agency, um, I'd had a few jobs in, and I was meeting with a really good friend of mine, Martin's DOP, that I'd worked with on a lot of projects, and my phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing, and eventually I picked it up, and it was this guy, and he said, "These producers are looking for a director to do this feature as soon as possible. Are you available? Can you take it over?" And I said, "Okay, what is it?" I wasn't sure if it'd be like a really low budget thing. That's what I've been doing before, and I was really comfortable doing these sort of really big budget adverts. And I
Yeah, that is
remember
something
actually
I
putting a
found.
friend. Yeah,
Yeah,
I put a
it's easy to
friend
get used
forward.
to the advertising world budgets, and then you go back to the indie world, and
Well,
you're like, oh,
yeah, but funny enough, they've kind of petered out over the
yeah,
years.
that's true
Again,
too.
due to the change in the industry, and the influencers and all the sort of the middle ground content, if you like,
Yeah,
evaporate. But yeah, I ended up going to meet them at Pinewood Studios in London. They had an office there, and
nice.
5 weeks later, we were on location at Shepton Mallet, which is a very, very old prison built in the 1600s. And so it had a real atmosphere to it. And we
Yeah, it sounds
ordered
like a great location.
ordered all the costumes in, and the cast, and makeup was a big deal. So had a great makeup team, and we just had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I think I remember shooting that for 2 weeks, and then we were in Cannes again. It was leading up to May, and so we took a little trailer over, and it sold like hotcakes. So it was great, just because it looked great. We knew how to make something look great, and hopefully they didn't recognize the script.
Yeah. Good notes there. So I just wanted to clarify. So you wrapped up production just a few weeks before Cannes, but you scrambled together like a trailer with like a bunch of beautiful shots that made it. You're like, oh, it looks
No,
nice.
we shot 2.5 weeks, and during that, I got my editor who came on site to put trailer together with the footage we'd got. And then when I came back from Cannes, I was back on location shooting for another 2 weeks. And then we had to do this big
Oh,
sort of helicopter thing on a beach in Devon. So yeah, so I hadn't finished the film, but I was like, if I'm gonna go to Cannes, right in the middle of it. I'd already told the producers in advance, so well, I've booked Cannes, so I need a break. And yeah, that's fine, because they needed a week break anyway. I think everyone could have done with that. And so by the time I was back, I was like, okay, there's all these sales agents very keen on it, and they want to get it ready for AFM so they can sell there. So yeah, it was a very unusual. And then straight off the back of that, once I'd gone through post, and we finished by AFM, and delivered, come the following 2 months later, we were in Scotland filming Shepherd. So that was a very back to back
wow,
whirlwind,
that's
whirlwind. Yeah.
incredible. And I want to go into Shepherd 2 in a second, but so you shot for a few weeks, took a break, went to Cannes, went back and shot. But did you actually edit together some footage in the middle of like what you had
Yeah,
already shot? Is that what you
the
said? And
first
to
two
kind of
weeks.
generate buzz?
Yeah,
Like, are you
exactly. So the first 2 weeks, I think it's the mentality of doing commercials for years, and particularly like sometimes you have to have a great team running around behind the scenes at Fashion Week or whatever, and they want a video and they need it online by midnight, and it needs to be great, and it needs to be amazing, and these
yeah,
things are like 90 seconds long and whatever. So to have 2.5 weeks shooting and an editor just hanging around, it's easy, within a day,
yeah.
within a few hours, he's put something great together, and the music and all the rest of it, and can I get this on my phone, my iPad, and I'll fly over and I'll set up a load of meetings and show people. And in the end, sales agent picked it up, and I think it was Vertical Picture, Vertical Entertainment, I think, that distributed it in the US and UK. So it was yeah, it did really well for them. They made their money. They were happy. And I'd spent years, begging, borrowing, stealing, and no one pays any attention until you've got something and you show it to them, and you press play, and it looks great because I'd got this great team on, and we managed to get some great set and a great location and great makeup, and we'd had some early effects in there. Um, yeah, it was just straight off the bat. It was the first experience I'd had of an excited sales agent, an excited distributor. I'd never had
Okay.
that before. I usually get told to go away. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. That is really interesting. That is very helpful information. I'm like writing all that down in my head too. And but then I think listeners will be really fascinated by that. The and then you went back and shot the rest, and it's great. What kind of budget was it initially, if you're allowed to say? And then like what was the
I
deal that was
think
made?
Yeah, it was a £750,000. I
Okay.
think they're aiming for 550,000, but then they didn't realize, you get good tax breaks in the UK, and they're quite
Mm,
new producers, and they put everything together, and we made it for £750,000. I mean, we were staying, we weren't eating incredible food or staying in luxury accommodation.
no way.
And
Not with
it
that
was
budget, yeah.
pretty quick. Yeah, it was a pretty quick shoot, but we got a lot of deals. We got all the costumes mass produced in China for all the prison outfits, and then we hired some really cool sort of guard outfits. There wasn't much in terms of a lot of spend or anything. It was period. It needed to look fairly period, but it was easy
Hmm.
to do that because it's all contained in this prison. And there's a little bit of CGI in the end done, but not too much. Yeah, and we turned the whole thing around. From me getting that phone call to delivering the film was just under 10 months.
I was about to say, did it like have a theatrical release or is it just VOD or like
It was VOD, I think. It was in some theaters in the US for a little bit, but and then it was straight to sort of VOD. But it did have theatrical in South America and a lot of Asia, and it did really well there. I remember people posting on social media, taking photos of their tickets and their popcorn, and I couldn't believe that, because I just fired this film out, and I was on the Isle of Mull at that time filming Shepherd, and just seeing all, being tagged in, and there was these, again, influencers, these film critics and things from all different countries, and speaking in their own language, and talking through the trailer and then analyzing it, and there's all these sort of videos out there with like thousands, hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views. Yeah, it was a weird experience because I wasn't even paying attention to the film by that point. I'd left it, and my mind was on something else. So to see that it was great, but it then made me think I wish I'd had a better script. I could have made a stronger film, but it was a whirlwind, and it was fun.
yeah, no, absolutely. And then once Shepard did its thing, then that got you manager, agent of a higher kind of caliber or any caliber at the time because you didn't have them. But
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
now you've had these other opportunities because you have all these other features in the works, things that you've written, things that other people have written, things that they've approached you about, things that you've been trying to get off the ground. What's
Yeah, so I've written, I think, when you're not making anything idle, and I get very bored and I just start writing. I think I've written about 21 scripts at the moment, feature film scripts. Obviously, that was
Wow.
this would be my fourth produced. I'd helped friends write there and gotten screenplay credits on their films before. At the moment, the three that I have that are ready to go, I've written all of them. But I'm also working on a fourth with an exec in Los Angeles who has written this script. He had this script and said, "Could you have a look at this and do a polish?" So I've been working on that as well. So yeah, I mean, I just love storytelling, and
Mm.
I found I've had more of a big my love for writing has grown a lot, particularly since COVID and after that zombie film experience. I was like, right, okay, we need to get to scripts and start, making sure films work. And I wrote another four scripts over COVID, so
Oh,
that was
wow.
big time for them. By the time you get to you meet, you really start seeing patterns and structures easily, much more easily, and the writing becomes less stressful, and because you're not angsting over a character. You've already done that prep before you start writing, so it's whereas beforehand I just want to write something, and then you have to figure it out
Hmm.
as you go. Quite painful. So, but yeah, I've written a lot, but the next few are yeah, largely me, and then I'm working on one with a friend that he's given.
Nice. Exciting times. Exciting times. What I'm curious on, like, who what screenplays and or screenwriters out there that have inspired you?
Sorkin, but I mean, obviously like I don't know actually. The Social Network, I thought it was great, but you really need someone like a David Fincher to pull that off from it, and
Oh yeah.
dialogue is great, and I know that Aaron Sorkin, when he writes, he also reads out and plays the parts back to himself, which is a big, I mean, anybody writing always do that because it might look great when it's on paper. When you start speaking, and an actor's trying to get it out, you see all the stutters and the where it doesn't flow, and it can help. So I tend to not ramble as much as I used to. I try and keep the dialogue short and sweet and neat and
Yeah.
simple for just to understand. Um, but he's been a huge inspiration, and Larry Kasdan, and again, just because of structure, very traditional structure. But it depends. I mean, uh, Stephen Knight, he's doing the new James Bond film at the moment, and did
Mm.
Peaky Blinder. A
Mm.
brilliant writer, but in a very, very different way. Again, I mean, and
Yeah.
also, well, I'm talking, he can write huge monologues, but again, you've got to get the right actors and the right, so you have to be at the right. If anybody else has that
Big
script
time.
and they haven't got the budget and they haven't got the, the experience, it can fall flat. So it's you realize it then really becomes an art,
Yeah,
to make.
totally.
But yeah, I mean, who influences me, and what my favorite films are, my favorite director. It changes every day. I've got, it depends on what
Yeah.
I watched last night. Suddenly, I'm buzzing about something different to what I was the day before. Which, yeah. So,
Well, how
but
about recently? What's
largely,
been inspiring you?
well, recently, I've been doing a lot of research into. I got bought this huge old book. Into myths and legends in the British Isles.
Mm.
One of my films is a direct follow up to Shepherd, and it covers a lot of the ancient myths and legends before Christianity, and some of them are really dark. I mean, I love it's less about the old films. I mean, I love reading more. I love telling stories,
Mm.
and for me, film is my favorite medium to tell a story because it's so accessible. But I love sitting down watching ghost stories or true stories or anything like that.
Mm.
Documentaries. It's less about films. I think when I watch films, I keep watching them objectively. I stand back and go, okay, well they did that and they did that, and I know exactly where this
Mm.
strand of the story is going to go, And I enjoy doing that because sometimes I get, surprised. But in terms of inspiration, um, true stories, myths, legends, all that. There's so much there that that fires my imagination off more. Um, I think when I watch films these days, a lot of it feels like work because I'm yeah, I'm looking at how they lit something, or I'm looking at someone's performance, and you can be impressed by stuff, but because the work that has gone into it, rather than just
Sure.
drowning in the story.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. That's why I'm really impressed when a movie is so well written and directed and acted and crafted, and that I can forget to be analyzing it on the industry side, and it's just like a complete experience. And
Yeah,
that is
they don't
pretty,
come along that often, but yeah, when they do, they're it's incredible.
yeah. But then there's also certain movies that the experience is so heightened, but then the craftsmanship is so delightfully executed that it almost enhances the experience to just kind of like take it in. I particularly found well, recently, Weapons, like a
Yeah,
delightful, like just the craftsmanship as far as putting it together, just really interesting. And then Obsession, as far as what just came out, I saw that at a
yeah.
film festival a few months ago,
Which
and I was
I
like,
haven't
oh
seen
my
yet.
gosh.
I've seen yeah, and everyone's just having complete meltdown. So I'm desperate to go out and see it this weekend. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can get lost in the craftsmanship. I know. I think the last film I really got lost in that was Mad Max Fury Road and June 2,
Oh,
where it's so insane, the artwork. You can't take your eyes off the screen, to the point you forget about how they did it, because there's no point trying to get your head around half the stuff. You're just like, okay, these guys are great. Now I'm just going to enjoy the story.
yeah.
Yeah, it was but yeah, there's so much
Yeah.
being made
Mad
now,
Max
which is
Fury
brilliant.
Road is one of the few movies that I saw in the theater four times.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It just
it's
it wasn't like I set out, I'm like, I'm gonna see this movie four times after seeing it once. It just kind of kept on happening. I was traveling, I had friends that hadn't seen it. I'm like, I'll go see it again. And I was like, oh, this one's in Dolby Atmos. All right, I'll go see it again, kind of stuff. So it just kept on
yeah,
being. And each time it delighted me just as much or more. Like I actually it enhanced the experience upon rewatches. Yeah,
yeah,
that's an impressive feat.
it,
I love
yeah,
that
it's
there's
over.
just these old tried and true filmmakers that are like, these young bucks are making action movies, and then they're like, hold my beer, kind of thing.
Yeah,
We'll show you how
and
it's done.
yeah, that was absolutely how it. I mean, from composition to storyboarding to, I mean, that is, it's incredible. And also as a director, I mean, watching that and knowing what it would take to get your crew to do half of one of those
Oh yeah.
shots. Like, okay, I want a shot here and one shot there, and then then I have the tsunami of crew going, no, you can't do that, mate. No, no, that's going to, and I can't do that, and I'll lose that there. I remember working with
Yeah.
one DOP, and I wanted a certain shot, and he said, no, I can't do that. We've got to move it. And I was like, yeah, it's just this. No, we don't have the gear for that. And and then as he turned around, the grip winked at me and went, I'll do it, and he did it, and I was just like. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I watch films like that, and I'm also thinking, think about the arguments he had with on set, trying to achieve half of that,
Oh
but
yeah,
worth it,
absolutely.
completely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I heard um Tom Hardy kind of like apologize afterwards. He's like, just didn't I didn't know what you were making.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
I think
and
so. Yeah,
someone described it as you were making a color that no one had seen before. I think is somebody on the set said that.
yeah.
And
I,
so
it's a good analogy because I think directing is a really lonely thing. You've got the film in your head, and you've got to really hold on to it for dear life, and you have to stand your ground, and people want to compromise, they want to do something else, or actors like, I've got a great idea, and you've got to entertain them, but you've got to make sure that you get what's in
right.
their act. And when you see something like that, it's like, how did he, pull that off without, compromising? Because it doesn't look like he compromised on anything there. If he
No.
did, I
And
don't
it took
know
him
what.
what 2 decades to get it made or more, kind of thing. So
Yeah, it was insane journey. Yeah, almost as long as
yeah.
Shepherd, but yeah.
Um Amazing. All right, cool. I love that you gain your inspiration from like lore and stories and all that. It seems like you really lean towards the thriller, supernatural, lore aspects.
Yeah, I just it's like the old go. I loved hearing ghost stories as a kid, and because it fires my imagination. So I think it's less about horror films and so. Although I enjoy horror films, it's more about my imagination being sort of and fear. And the film I'm working on at the moment, which hopefully gets going soon, is very different. It is a survival thriller, and it's I
Mm,
can't say much about it, but um it'll be the first film I've done which isn't gore and horror, and that which I'm really looking forward to, because I think one of my I found writing one of my favorite my strengths is drama, and I love writing comedy and things like that in scripts, and I have at the moment been pushed down this horror. So no, 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 you're the horror guy. So you did that, so you need to make more of that. So I'm hoping this is at least a demonstration that I can do other things.
yeah, I love that. Well, and there's certain filmmakers out there that I've really admired um that are beyond their genre. They just force themselves out of it. And I admire
Yeah,
the ones that stayed within their genre too, like Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, one of the greatest
yeah.
directors of all time, and he stayed within his genre, and it's amazing. Um,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if I have to make horror films for the rest of my life, or thrill, I've got no problem with that. It'd just be nice to try something else. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm lucky to hopefully have this opportunity, and because I think sometimes you feel in your gut you've got a strength somewhere, and then people are holding you back, going, well, no, no, because you did a horror film, so that is who you are, and sometimes it's
hmm,
frustrating, but I think if
sure,
you're yeah, if you stand your ground and say, no, 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 this is definitely what this is the right thing to do, someone will believe in you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I love seeing actors when they get typecast, but then somehow break out of that and kind of go in a whole new direction. And like Matthew McConaughey was, the rom com kind of guy, maybe like an action style movie or something here and there, but and then he just went a new direction. And then Emma Stone's
Yeah.
got an interesting trajectory to her career right now as well. And so
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, annoying I can't say who I'm speaking to at the moment, but there's a couple of big names that have attached themselves to my next, and very, very famous people, particularly from the 80s and 90s, and then
Mm,
one sort of from the world of Disney in more recent years, and they'll be playing
yeah,
very, very different to what they've played before, and that really that's really exciting to see what they do with that. And what was great is sending the script out and getting such a quick response, like, yeah, no, I'm doing it, which is again, I never had that before, and but then being able to sort of have my imagination fire off, knowing the characters they played in these big movies before, to now be doing something that I've created in a very, very different world.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that
I
was the
love that.
strangest thing, making Shepherd. I'd had that film in my head for so long, um, that when we were actually filming it, and I'd drawn the sets, and I'd even the plans and exactly the colors and all the rest of it, to walk onto that set and then see the actors in the costumes that I'd imagined them in, and to play it the way I'd imagined it. That was a really strange, and also shoot it in this incredible location.
Mm,
That was a very, very strange thing to see. And then you panic and see it on the big screen, and you see sort of 400 people sitting down in the theatre, the film festival, and it starts playing, and you go, "Oh God, this has all come out of my head." I better, and I turn away and run because I don't want to watch everybody watching my film. It's weird. It's almost like that wasn't the intention, and then suddenly it's there in a cinema, and you're like, oh. So yeah,
I'm curious on your prep side. You mentioned you did all these drawings and stuff. Do you storyboarder? Do you do like previs animatics or
yeah,
boardmatics? And
yeah. I started off as a storyboard and concept artist, so I did
oh,
illustration at art college, and then screenwriting, and then I came out and thought, well, the perfect combination of those two is a storyboard artist, and then I'm going to learn how to direct. So I was fortunate enough to get some great work, sitting down with directors, and storyboarding scripts with them before they went out and shoot.
love that.
Went out to and there was everything from feature films, sort of B movies, like horror films with like Dolph Lundgren and a monster and that kind of thing. To I did some reboots of Doctor Who. I did commercials for
Nice.
like Tomb Raider. Tons of features, shorts, pitches. I remember doing a pitch for a friend of mine who was applying to 20th Century Fox, as it was at the time, for the Alien 40th anniversary. They were going to do short films. Six. They were going to commission six directors to do a short film each, about Alien. They were giving a chunk of cash to make an official Alien short, and he won that. And I just did all the storyboards because I remember I grew up on Ridley Scott's storyboards from Alien. And I had a whole
Yeah.
book which I've still got of Ridley Scott's story. So great, I'm going to do it like Ridley Scott did. And he won the. I mean, it was a great story that he wrote, but he won the money and he made the short. So yeah, I did that for quite a long time before I went into filming commercials myself. But I storyboard everything that I do. So when I turn up on set, everything's ready, everything's prepped, everyone
Love
knows
that.
where they're supposed to be. And although you
Love
don't
that.
have to do the storyboard to perfection accurately, it's just a great starting point, and great tool in film for visual communication. I think lots of people tend to just do it on AI or whatever. Now it's like, ChatGPT, can you just do me some storyboards of this? But that's just lazy. I mean, I think when you physically, even if you can only draw stickmen,
Mhm.
you're physically doing it. It's like a
Yeah.
journal. Your brain's
Yeah.
ticking over whilst you're doing it. You're not letting something else or someone else do it for you. So even it just helps you work out the story visually. So it's
Yeah.
and saves so much time on set.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. Do you also, so pretty much storyboards, do you ever go like with your iPhone and your DP and you kind of like plan out the shots and have like a stand in or anything
Yeah,
like that? Or
well, I'll get my storyboards, and then the DP usually does that with there's a couple of apps you can buy with all the different lenses on and stuff. So we
sure.
sort of you click on the right lens that we're using, and then we sort of walk through it. But I mean, the new film I'm working on, I've had to storyboard that to death, because there's a lot of action and moving parts in it, and there will be some. That'll be the first time I'll need to definitely go into previs, so that the actors and the stunts and all the rest of it know what they're doing before, the effects can get to work. So that'll be a new experience for me. But I've strangely worked on it before on behalf of other people.
Okay.
But yeah, this is my ideas coming to life rather than theirs, so it'll be interesting. But
Yeah. Do you do like boardmatics or whatever, like put it to video and voices and things like that? I know Wes Anderson, I think, like he storyboarded all of some of his movies and put it all to sound, and he's all the voices and everything
oh,
before he goes and shoots it, basically.
no, I mean I learned the hard way when I did my first short film. I had film, and I was like, I was timing in my head. I probably got a maximum of 2 to 3 shots per thing, so I've really got to get this right. Um, so I didn't, and then when I did the final film, we cut it, and it cut very easily because the storyboards are there, and it did feel a little clinical. And I feel if you over prep, I mean, Wes
Mm,
Anderson can over prep
yeah.
because his films are so sort of, but
Yeah.
if you
It's
over
leaning
prep,
into
and that's
the,
his style, yeah, he's
yeah,
leaning
it's his
directly
style.
into that, and that's his thing. I feel for me, I'm not giving enough breathing space for my actors and my, my DOP and
Mm,
my design and stuff like that. As I was like, this is, I give them an idea and I'll give them a position, but I'll also trust them to sort of bring their own thing to it. Once I know that they've got the story and they know the vibe and the atmosphere that I'm trying to create, they'll come up with better ideas than I can have. They know what they can do better than I can. I know everybody's job to an extent, so I could communicate.
yeah.
But if I'm saying I want to do this shot, my DP can turn around and say, actually, could we do this? I'm like, brilliant. If you can do that, yeah, that fits in with with the story. Whereas I think if I over
Hmm.
design, it can end up feeling a little clinical and a bit the life can leave it. So you have to
Yeah.
give about 30% room for people's to sort of actors to do their own little bit and everybody to have their own take on something.
Yeah. Amazing. So what about whether you want to word it as in like tips or recommendations or advice to current people, or just your past self? Like what do you think people get
Um,
wrong
I,
or do well to
I'd
focus
certainly
on?
say to I certainly say to my past self, the best advice I would give and to anyone is never take anyone else's advice. It just always sends you down the wrong path. I think film's one of those
Mm,
industries where everybody's career, everybody's path is completely different. There is no set
mm,
way of doing things. Like so, storyboards, and then ended up falling into corporates and commercials, and accidentally going back into film. A lot of it wasn't planned. And I spent years in between that, certainly in the early 2000s, working on TV as an art director and a set decorator for game shows. I mean, so I threw myself into everything from all corners. And I used to get lots of advice. I get advice from sales agents. What you want to do is this. What you really want to be doing is this. And and you can listen, but you really need to be objective and stand back and
mm,
think of you, because no one can tell you what you want to be doing or how to do things. Or if they're saying, "Oh,
mm,
you're not making a proper film unless you're shooting on film," and they're just opinions. It's never good advice. I think that the best advice I could give, and you don't have to take it, is just hook or by crook, make your film, even if it's on a phone or anything like that. As long as the story and the performances are there, people are going to pay attention. And once that happens and the ball is rolling, and then your career will start moving. But it is about just getting things made. And I used to hate that as advice, because it's like, well, no, hold on, it's more difficult than that. You've got to get money, you've got to do this. Sometimes you've got to do it in any way you can. I sold my car for the first one. My first feature, I saved, I think it was like £400 or £500 per weekend once a month, where I could spend on food and travel and get everybody to do 7 months working for free. Um, until eventually, getting commercial work. And I think one of the reasons I did get my first zombie film was, one of the producers was a big football fan, and I'd been doing a load of
oh,
commercials with David Beckham at that time. And so he saw them and he was like, "You made them great." I mean, nothing to do with a zombie film at all, but in his head, that was that meant I was his guy,
so
to
interesting.
make the zombie
Yeah.
film. But I hang out with this famous footballer. I mean, I don't, but I was there shooting those bits of content for Chinese TV and online commercials and stuff with it for a while. So yeah, everybody has a completely different path,
Yeah.
and you've just got to go with your gut, and
Mm,
never take anybody's advice to heart.
mm.
That's the most important thing.
I like it. That is, I think, very helpful advice. How do you balance commercial company feature film endeavor now?
Well, I'm doing less now. I think the last few years. So Kindred Comms, who I had with my business partner since 2019, that was very much commercials focused, and we did the post on Shepherd. So we did, we coordinated that and put some deals together and raised some money for that. Um, so we thought we could do film and commercials as a company, but we really were trying to get the commercials, and the industry was changing, and like I say, a lot of the um, advertising budgets that were with um, uh, production companies like ours for brands were moved to influencers and paying them to do three posts and for £100,000, stupid amounts of money, simply to buy access to an audience for five
Right.
minutes, and then that doesn't buying awareness. I mean, those advertising budgets are always to buy awareness, not just to make an advert. So they move off to where the awareness might be. Um, and it was a struggle. It was difficult. So we did a few TV commercials. We did some last year. We did three last year, which were entirely AI. Which I jumped in and I learned it, and I wasn't really excited by it. It did some great things. We still employed animators, for example, to do an
Okay.
animation in AI. So they would come up with the ideas and they would animate it. And Sarah, she did a great job. I was doing a TV commercial where we're filming a shopping center, and we had a big drone shot that had to go through everything. But for insurance purposes, we couldn't have all the extras walking around um, on the thing in case the drone crashes on them, and there's all sorts of insurance and legal reason in those shopping centers, to particularly if you want to shoot it without any aircon units on the roof. So for the first time, we got AI to add in the extras, and it was early days AI, and it did it really well, so well that moving forward, that company's like, oh, we'll never need to pay extras again. We'll just put it, we'll just do the main models for whatever, and then we'll just add everyone in. And the same with the animators. So, oh, we don't, you should just do the little bit. We're going to pay it for a few days, and then AI will do everything. And you just realize just eating into creativity, it's eating into people. It's not just people's jobs. It's it's the heart and humanity of a lot of it. And I sat there and I'll watch it now. So yeah, it's okay, but it doesn't connect with me. And a lot of commercials are trying to squeeze a lot of information into 5 seconds or 20 seconds tops, when people are just staring at skip button at the bottom and just like, I can't be bothered with this. So
Yeah, totally.
those days and those templates and the advertising space died a long time ago, and yet people are still sort of paying for it, and not as much. They're paying influencers to do stuff, but again, even that world is fading. You'll get an influencer with a product saying, "Oh, I'm obsessed with this," but it's like, you're not obsessed with it. We've heard that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
You're
you're
being
paid.
paid to say that you're obsessed with it. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
it's a strange world. So I've stepped back from advertising. I'm still doing some commercial work. Some great stuff. I'm still speaking to people, but I'm doing less of it now. And the commercial work that I am doing, I can pay a lot more attention to it, because I'm not jumping from one commercial project to another. I'm just focusing on my films, which are much more of a slow burn to prep and brew over. And then what I do, I think my last commercial was a patch plants advert, which is a small company in the UK that deliver house plants to your door through the post, in a very complicated way. But it was a fun, quick advert. I think
Yeah.
we'd scheduled a whole day. We were wrapped by 3 o'clock because we'd storyboarded it. We knew it, and the cast were great, and it was a great little advert. And that was because I was focused on not churning one thing out after another. So I
Yeah.
sold my half of Kindred Comms in January, back to
Oh,
my
okay.
business partner. So I'm now the sole owner of Kindred Pictures, which is largely focused on. We'll still produce commercials, and still are, but our main focus is storytelling and feature films.
Love that.
Yeah, it's been an eclectic career, but like I was
Yeah, I
saying when you
find
asked the advice, it's everyone has their own path, and I
and I
think
find your path very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit like Ridley Scott. So weirdly, I was watching a documentary not long after I'd started, and I was like, this is me. Not that I'm Ridley Scott at all, but he started at the BBC in the art department, and I started at ITV Channel 4 in the art department over here, and working on game shows and TV shows, and then I think he went into commercials, I went into commercials, and then he got his first fit. So it's kind of like that. So it seems to be a good path in the UK.
Yeah,
But it's but again, the world is changing. I think I was probably the last of my generation sort of do that, take that sort of path. I think this is way before, you can make an entire film on a phone in a day. I mean, you didn't need to sell your car to do what I did anymore. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what people start doing with AI. Again, I'm not being an old-fashioned grumpy person when I say it's not filmmaking, it's prompting. So when everyone says, "Oh, it's an AI filmmaker," it's like, you're a prompter. If
yeah,
if you're not writing and going through that process mentally, then you're not delivering your vision. You're asking something else to do it. If an actor
yeah.
isn't performing, you're just prompting something. It's not a real thing. It's something else. So I think
Hmm.
it's I think it will settle down into its place as a tool. It always makes me laugh when people, oh, you guys are cooked. Hollywood's gone because you can just type in your phone and make, I'm James Bond. I'm going to make my own James Bond film with me in it, and I'm running around. Yeah, you can. It'll be, and you know what? I'm sure it'll look, all the effects and stuff will look great, but it's not. It's not a. But it's a gimmick, and it shouldn't be
Yeah,
used for that. I think it's a great tool, but if we give up our creativity, then you give up what it is to be human. You give up your
I agree.
your cognitive ability to communicate en masse is what makes us stand apart from other species. So if you
Yeah.
if you're surrendering that to AI, then there's no point you being existing. You know. So yeah, I think we'll come around to realize that soon enough. But everyone's very excited about it or not excited about it at the
Yeah,
moment. So we'll see what people do and whether they do the right thing or the wrong thing. Time will tell.